So we've just gone past 2:30, so we will kick off. So hi everyone, and a massive welcome to our quarterly focus group for Pro and Premium members. If you haven't been to one of these sessions before, they're one of our exclusive activities that we do for Pro and Premium members that give you unique access to insights which we don't share at our member meetups or any of our other free events. And today is no exception on the unique insights front. We're going to dive into the sometimes mysterious minds of overseas distributors. Most of you will be using distributors as your route to market for all or some of your exports. So time spent understanding what makes them tick so that you can manage and motivate them in the best way possible should hopefully be time well spent. Please do treat this like a face-to-face meeting. So put your phones to one side, turn your cameras on, join in, and that way that you'll really make sure that you get the maximum out of it. Now, as you know, we love a survey at the FDA, but we decided this summer that we'd give you a break from fielding our questions and that we would poll our distributor community for the first time since Brexit and COVID instead to see how they're feeling about working with overseas suppliers and UK suppliers in particular in 2023. If you came to our London event last month, you'll have seen the headline feedback, but I thought it would be valuable to whip through that again quickly today, but this time to use it as a springboard for a deeper discussion with one of our very old, as in long-standing friends of the FDA, Greg Seminara, aka Mr. Distributor himself. And if you haven't met Greg, you'll see why I call him that very, very shortly. So I'm delighted to have Greg to join us, and we're going to chew over the findings of the survey, and Greg's going to give us his expert opinion on distributors and how you can improve your relationship with them. Greg, welcome. I'm going to just hand over to you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit why you have the accolade of Mr. Distributor.
First of all, Nicola, I'm not that old.
Sorry, I was talking for myself.
I'm not that young either, but I'm not that old. So anyway, thrilled to collaborate with the UK FDEA, long-term relationships with the group. Listen, you as export managers or brand owners, you have about 100 things in your responsibility list, everything from packaging, compliance, labeling, currency fluctuation, production, pricing, etc. What I've done for the last 20 years of my career is focus on that last key step, that place where export dreams are converted to cash, and that is the subject of distributor identification. Now, there's probably 10,000 people alone in the UK that say, hey, I could help you find distributors. You know, my USP or my point of difference is the following, is one, I've created and owned and pioneered the distributor database, which tracks about 9,500 distributors in 96 countries. So when we talk about distributors in a country, it's the complete subset. Secondly, distributor search is a science. So I've actually published 15 free guides on distributor search and working with distributors. And third, I've worked on more than 300 projects and governments, even though I'm based in the US, many projects across every country in Europe, if not the world. So while you have many things to work on, I'm capable of just one, and it's a pleasure for me to be here and hear the results of your survey, and then I'll kind of share some best practices and tips following Nicola's presentation.
Great, Greg, and yeah, as you can see just from Greg's intro, it's easy to see why he's a real expert in his field. So yeah, so I'm going to whip through my bit, which is obviously the least interesting bit, and then we'll come back to you, Greg. As we're quite a small group, if you've got any questions, do put your hand up, but if I don't see your hand, feel free to bung any questions or comments in the chat, and we'll try and answer them we go along or come back to them at the end. As I said, it's a wonderful opportunity to make the most of Greg's experience, so do tap into his knowledge. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen. Can you all see that? Yeah, can you see my screen? Cool. Great.
It's a little odd, Nicola.
It's a bit part of the screen.
Now it's coming back more normal. Yep.
Okay, that's weird. I'll just do full screen there. Is that better? Yep. Okay, great. Okay, so this was a survey that we've been carried out over the last couple of months, really. And just in terms of the size and shape of the respondents pool, to date, we've had over 40 replies from every continent across the world, apart from Antarctica. And the number of brands that distributors carry range from 3 to an eye-watering 700, but the average is kind of much more manageable, 20 to 80. And the number of brands that distributors buy typically come from 5 or more source markets, and they range from household names to challenger brands and niche players. The distributors work across a broad range of categories, including drinks, ambient grocery, confectionery, snacks, and dairy. And around 2/3 of them currently represent British brands, so not all of them by any means. So completely by luck and default rather than design, we've ended up with a really nice, lovely, rounded cross-section of respondents. Sorry, I was trying to move my screen on. So the first thing that we asked was what was important to distributors when they're looking for new overseas suppliers, and they were allowed to choose 3 factors. Pleasingly, I think taste just jumps ahead of price in terms of the main things that they're looking for, followed by marketing support on offer from the brands, and as well as attractive packaging are not far behind. And they're also expecting brands to demonstrate market understanding and to have values that are aligned with theirs. And in that other category in the far right bar, that included a track record in other countries and a willingness to invest in country-specific packaging. So I think that a key takeaway here is that even in economically challenging times, it's not all about the commercial factors, and distributors are still looking for quality in terms of products and packaging. And I think that's important to bear in mind when you're putting your proposition together, so that you push all the right buttons when you're talking to distributors. But we'll definitely explore that with you, Greg, in a bit. So the second question that we asked was whether there are any particular factors that attract distributors to buy from the UK rather than from other countries. I think we pride ourselves on the quality of our products, but it's great to have confirmation that it's appreciated around the world, with it being the main attraction to the UK for overseas distributors, followed by product heritage and provenance and our innovation and NPD capability. I think I was slightly surprised to see that food safety and security and service quality aren't as valuable as I imagined, but maybe that's because we're busy pushing our quality and heritage and innovation, and it's just something that we need to shout about a bit more. And then the other positive attributes of UK brands include our branding and packaging design, respect for brands amongst consumers, and the fact that prices are not cheap, but they're reasonable, which is, in the current scheme of things, probably reasonably encouraging. So having asked what attracts distributors to UK brands, we obviously had to ask them what are some of the main challenges that they face when they're considering working with UK brands compared to those in other countries. Probably no surprise here that despite that fan in the previous slide having said that we aren't cheap but prices are reasonable, all the least attractive points about the UK are related to commercial and operational factors rather than having anything to do with our products or packaging. So I'm just going to quote you what one respondent said. They said, the massive inflation in the UK is pushing the competitiveness of British products to its limits. We will soon be forced to remove UK brands from our range because they are simply no longer sellable due to price increases. And again, that's something that we're sure to be discussing in a minute with Greg. Something that was interesting that I thought stood out was about a third of the respondents were from the EU, but only a couple of them actually mentioned customs and Brexit as being an issue. And in fact, a distributor in Germany said that not only did he have any major challenges with Brexit, but that he felt that UK suppliers were particularly knowledgeable about anything to do with Brexit. And then the key other factor which came up was from several respondents was a lack of willingness from UK suppliers to adapt packaging for the local market, and they were relying too much on stickering, which, as we know, can be a really tricky challenge to overcome, especially if you've got small volumes and you're just starting off in a market. So who do distributors hold up as being examples of top performers across all suppliers? One distributor fed back that he had no one in his portfolio who he could give this accolade to, which I thought was a bit worrying. But apart from that, most of the companies were very happy to single out one or more companies who they felt were best in class. And the fantastic news is that almost a third of the companies who were singled out by distributors who named a brand chose one from Britain. And even better news is that 5 of those are FDA members. So a big shout out and congratulations to Tunnocks, Linton Exports, Nairns, Walker's Shortbread, and Coombe Castle, who came in for a lot of praise. So we then asked the distributors, okay, you've nominated these best-in-class suppliers. What makes them best in class, and what can we learn from them? And this was an open question, so obviously it got a wide range of answers, but neatly they sort of fell into 4 different buckets, which I've sort of put in these different speech bubbles. So companies who are best in class have really got their finger on the pulse when it comes to compliance and legislation. And I think we maybe think that a lot of that falls under the responsibility of your local distributor, but actually they are looking to you to be on the ball, but they do really appreciate it when you are. And then market and competitor understanding and the willingness to adapt products and marketing accordingly, also important. And linked to that is marketing support and investment, which gets a big tick. And the brand there at the bottom that was described as having great product, great marketing, great pricing, was a British one, which does show the art of the possible. And then finally, something that was really important was the people element. And I think that was a common thread, is that companies who excel tend to have export embedded across the company. It's not just one person, and all functions are working together to provide superior service to their distributors. So to finish up, we asked distributors about their appetite for new products, and the great news here, and I know Greg's going to be talking about this too, is that a whopping 94% are either actively looking for new products right now, or they are open to them if they're the right fit for their portfolio. So the demand is very, very much there. And finally, we asked where distributors go when they're hunting for these new suppliers. And I can assure you that we did not doctor the questions to ensure that trade shows came out top for Sandra and PS8, but they did emerge as a clear winner as a vehicle for people who are seeking new products to add to their ranges. And also, I think more good news for PS8 and for the FDA is that Meet the Buyer events and trade associations are both also a key source of new suppliers and products. Recommendations from existing suppliers are also important. And so you might be able to help your own relationship with your distributors by introducing them to complementary, but obviously non-competing brands from the UK. And in the other bucket, the main source was social media. So I think that just underlines the importance of making sure that you can be found easily on search engines. You're keeping your LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook pages up to date. And so I think the key takeaway there is drop everything you're doing, contact PS8 about going to your next shows, and also make sure you put your FDA membership on auto renew for infinity. Anyway, so hopefully you found that interesting, but the purpose of doing the survey wasn't just to take the temperature of what distributors are feeling and what they're seeing. It was also, what can we do with the outcomes and what can we do practically in terms of shaping FDA activities, PS8 supports for you as members. So where do we go from here with it? Well, any of you who are amateur survey creators like me will know that as soon as you press send, you realize there are about 10 other questions that you should have asked rather than the ones that you did just ask. So luckily, I think the distributor community are incredibly generous, and we did ask them if we could sort of go back to them and ask some more detailed questions. And I think probably 95% said yes. So that's kind of next on my to-do list, is to press the flesh a bit harder and sort of get some more concrete and tangible insights. And then we've also asked the UK best-in-class suppliers if they could share their side of the distributor relationship, not to give away trade secrets, but to help us build up a profile of what it takes to win that accolade. And so we'll be sharing the findings of the research with you guys as well. And then finally, we're going to jump on this opportunity that's presented by distributors and their appetite for new products. We're going to interrogate them on what exactly it is they're looking for, so that we can use that intelligence to make connections for you and put on some Meet the Distributor activities. So watch this space. Nitesh, I can see you've got your hand up. Go ahead and ask a question. I'll stop screen
it was
sharing.
just a quick one with regards to the prior slide. Obviously, you looked at what are the things, or what are the sources that distributors have for finding new products, but also what about if we just had a general question of, well, okay, how much of that is actually inward inquiry, i.e. suppliers getting in touch with that out of their products that they're taking? How much of it is them going out and looking for the stuff, and how much of it is suppliers coming to them?
Okay, great. That is a great question, which I will add to my next list of questions when I go back to talk to them. You're quite right. It's much, be a good balance to understand how, are they getting bombarded by requests every day? So yeah, thanks. So okay, I'm gonna bring Greg in. Come back to Greg. Greg, can I just, while you're sharing your screen there, just ask you, your kind of initial reactions to the findings of the survey? Okay, they're quite top line, but is that roughly in line with, what you're seeing?
Yes, absolutely. I think the survey was well done. I think it was broad. The conclusions are this. Number one, every single distributor, okay, I don't believe in 6% that are not, is looking for new business. Now, you might say why, And that is a distributor, once he's created, call it his machine, his operation, that is warehouse, people, sales team, etc. That next new piece of business coming in is highly profitable in terms of incrementality, because he's not, getting a new warehouse, he's not adding new infrastructure. So they're all looking to, particularly, in this challenging environment, to grow brands. So I thought that was particularly relevant. I do think, tap yourselves on the shoulder. UK maintains a high degree of, kind of product quality and innovation, despite what's going on in your retail market. I see great examples of product innovation, and of course, distributors want to answer their buyers in saying what's new. And I think UK delivers on that. And I think one point that I'll bring out in the context of my discussion that they bring out, but perhaps in more subtle way, is the topics of, one, they want to work with people that have done their homework, and two, ones that are not that are willing to support their brand with marketing. And these are themes that I will cover. But I think the good news is distributors are all looking for new brands. But as segue into my comments, I find that the process of distributors and brands coming together is kind of disjointed. So hopefully, perhaps some of my comments today, will help you in this journey. And it starts with, are you the right fit? Okay, with the distributor that you're talking to. In my database, I track almost 3,300 distributors just in Europe, about 90 per country. But there's a big difference between manufacturers and distributors. So this whole area of connecting and finding the right fit, I've tried to make this a bit of a science. So as I look at exporters and brands, I rank brands on a 1 to 10 scale. So a 10 would be like a Nestle, Unilever, Nestle, and a 1 would be more of a startup, like Greg and Nicola's Biscuits, that we're trying to get traction in our home countries. So within, and 5 would kind of be a national hero, et cetera, et cetera. So, and whether a company in self-assessing is a 3 or a 5 or a 5 or a 7, it's all debatable. It's a self-assessment. But where the linkage is in finding this right fit is when you look at the distributor community. And once again, I've got a 1 to 5 star rating on the distributors. And it's not to say a 5-star distributor is better than a 1-star distributor. I kind of do this akin to a Michelin star basis, where we'd all love to go to a 1-star Michelin restaurant and have a great meal. And a 5-star, of course, doesn't exist, but would be outstanding. But the key is in your connectivity with the distributors is finding the ones based upon where that distributor is that are the best fit. Because you could have a great innovation, but you're a smaller to mid-sized company, and you could have a meeting with a great distributor with all the bells and whistles and capabilities, but you know what? He's not the right fit for you. If you're small, you want a small to mid-sized guy who's willing to, pioneer, who's not scared away if you have a limited marketing budget. So I think one of the key things is finding the right fit. And also, I think it's a very valid point. A lot of people get upset. Well, I reached out to these distributors, or I had all these meetings and nothing happened. Okay. Distributors are not monogamous. They're serial daters. They'll go to a trade show and they'll shake 30 to 50 hands, and everybody walks away from those meetings thinking, that they're about to seal a deal. And 60 days later, they find out they went from done deal to dead deal. Or I complain, I generally consult privately for very, very big brands, be it Duracell or Pringles or Tabasco or something, and the distributors know me, they don't reply. Well, Greg, I get 10 email inquiries a week, okay? A week of new brands, all looking to gain my attention. So some of the comments that I'll share with you answer this question of how do we break through the clutter, but finding the right fit. Also, you know, chasing after the right markets, I think, is also a critical aspect. You know, a lot of export managers, they're one person and big world, you know, 197 countries. And some export managers also have UK commercial responsibilities. So all countries are not alike. And the effort to tackle, you know, maybe a Germany or a France or an Italy or, you know, even here in the States or China is enormous. And so sometimes, you know, depending on your ambition, aspiration, and investment, it's better to look at markets for the UK that, you know, have a higher acceptance level. So neighbor markets, i.e. Ireland, homesick markets, obviously big British populations and places like Spain, island countries, Malta, Cyprus, Iceland, Caribbean. All island countries don't have local manufacturing, so you know, you're not competing with the local brand. And also continents, the Middle East, particularly the Middle East countries with oil, have always been great export markets. So as you make choices for your time and engagement in finding the right fit, it's not just picking the right distributors, it's focusing your energy on the right countries. So what distributors want to know? And by the way, we'll get to it a little bit later, but I've actually published something. It's free. It's 84 pages called the Distributor Search Guide. 84 pages, and many of them I've cut and pasted to share with you today, but I'll share with you a link to that later. I've also published a second guide, free, from first meeting to first order, 54 pages of next steps. So, you know, there is a science to kind of what distributors want to know and what they're looking for. I'm not going to go through every single item on this 20-point checklist, but the basic number one, at the end of the day, what they're looking for is what is the size of the prize for you, the distributor. You know, a lot of the brand owners, and by the way, I chair a similar group in the US, the USA Food Export Group. I work with the Italian group. So this is not just a UK issue. The American companies, Italians, the Spanish are equally guilty. You know, we spend all of our time and bandwidth, you know, beating our chest on how wonderful our story is and our beautiful product story and history, which is critical, and your ingredients and clean label, et cetera, et cetera. But the guy can kind of pick up on that quickly. That's why he's having the meeting with you. What he really wants to know is how your company and your brand is going to make him money, and what is the size of the prize for him. It would be like if I was offering Nicola a job with Export Solutions. She'd love the opportunity. What would be going through her mind is, what's the salary, Greg? What's the salary? What are the conditions? And really, what I find happens as we go through these meetings and discussions with the distributor, it's all about us, and we never hit on the fundamental question: is we expect this business to be 200,000 pounds, 500,000 pounds. We never talk about, hey, we expect to invest 50,000 pounds, or we expect to invest nothing. What he wants to know, the most important thing, is what is the size of the prize for him? Because ultimately, you know, he's got a scorecard. So after you sell him, okay, then he's got to go to the buyer, okay, and he's got to be confident. And this is just 6 different factors that buyers tend to look at, he's got to be able to answer these same questions for the buyer. That is, what is the innovation? Why is this different? The saleability, the pricing attractiveness, the packaging attractiveness, very importantly, the promotion plan. And I'm going to talk about promotion plan a little bit because ultimately, whether your price is higher or lower, it's all about what marketing turnover, what sales can be generated. And without marketing, be it digital, sampling, price promotion, etc., even if the brand is the greatest new thing, it will just sit there on the shelf. So as retailers are very protective of their shelf space, so are distributors with their own resources and teams' attention, is they will support brands that support themselves. If you support the distributor with promotion, they will support you with their time and efforts. So those are a lot of factors. Probably, if each of you as export managers didn't have a monthly quota, you could have written down those factors and said, okay, Greg, we got it. Okay, we understand. But as we as small to mid-sized manufacturers wearing many hats, how do we break through this clutter? How do we really impress distributors using the resources that we have? So the first thing is that when you reach out to distributors or participate in distributors, identify synergies that you have with that distributor. By adding your product to their portfolio, how is this synergistic with what he's already doing? So I see, Nilesh, is the guy already in ethnic Asian food and you're bringing him an Indian solution? Or is he in general ethnic food, i.e., let's say Italian food and Spanish food, and you can give him an Asian food solution? Or is the guy already in confectionery and snacks? Well, I have 13 different segments of confectionery, snacks, biscuits. Does this fit a segment that he's not in already? He's already in crisps and biscuits, but he's not in gummies. Or is he a distributor that specializes in natural products? Does he specializes in challenger brands? Or even within the context of my database, I think we track about 600 distributors that specialize or have a big portfolio of UK products. So simply by being made in the UK, that you qualify because they want to be seen in the country as the source of innovative products from the UK. So as you begin your conversation with the distributor, it's not just that he's a distributor and you're a brand owner, but it's like on a first date at Starbucks, you're establishing something that you have in common, okay? The second part is too many discussions are just random. It's all about my brand, and people don't know a lot about the country. Now, they may have visited, be it Spain or UAE or even the US or Canada, but do they really know some fundamentals about that country? i.e., how does your brand compare to what's currently available on the shelf in that country? Okay. If I have time, I'll show you a demo later. I also own a retailer database that tracks 2,900 retailers. Actually, I'll show you an example in a second. But now, through like going to the equivalent of Tesco.com or Ocado, you can do online desktop store checks. Okay, so how does my brand compare to what's available now? Within the context of that country, what are your target retailers? i.e., when I talk to an American company about coming to the UK, we talk about Sainsbury, Ocado, and Waitrose as launch points. I wouldn't send them to Iceland or Asda for most of them as a place of entry. So what retailers are you targeting, and what is your proposed retail price? Also to impress them, so doing your homework is being able to talk to them about what your investment plan is. We suffer the same issue in the US. When you export, your product is always going to be a premium. But now we've seen with our price increases, cost justified, that we've gone to super premium or even luxury in some cases. And as your survey bore out, people expect products from the US or the UK to be of premium quality. In a way, they want to spend more, but the key is even if you price higher, is this whole investment in promotion and marketing and digital. I would actually price my product 10% higher than I could, okay, and deal that back in trade promotion and excitement. But having this discussion around models for promotion is critical. I was in Saudi Arabia on a project about 4 weeks ago, and we discussed, hey, we'll cover the listing fees, but out of the margin, we'll do some above the line. You could do price promotion out of the distributor margin. There's a lot of different ways to slay the investment part. But the fundamental thing a distributor will tell you is we support the brands that support us. In most cases, do not expect, it's your brand, do not expect the distributor to invest his own money to promote your brand. His investment is his team. And figuring out the whole promotion thing is a critical thing of credibility. Sending samples, it can be expensive, as we know, but getting the product into the buyer's house and the buyer's team is really the best way for him to fall in love. I can't tell you the number of times that somebody sent me a product I wouldn't have been interested, never work with the company, but tried the product, fell in love, and that convinced me that others would fall in love too. But ultimately, what the distributor wants to know is what is the size of the prize for him? What is the salary that he will get by representing your brand? And it doesn't have to be a huge number, and the first year is always tough, but realistically, if these other factors come into play, what is the size of the prize for him? So as identified in the survey, pricing is really a critical aspect of, gaining traction. And, distributors are always impressed with somebody who says, hey, you've done your homework, okay? You've done your homework. And it's pretty easier. It's a lot easier these days to kind of put yourself in a range of pricing. So this is Carrefour in the United Arab Emirates, okay, Dubai. I just literally went in here, but of the 2,900 retailers I track in my database, 1,500 of them approximately have online web shops. And so when somebody says, hey, we're looking at such and such country, I just click, I go in. I may have to use Google Translate in some countries, others I do not. And I just look at the category, okay? I see what else is out there. Very often you can filter by brand, so you can see what other international brands they're stocking. And then I look at the price, okay? And so in this case, let's say he's got Walkers at 2170 dirhams. The dirham is 3.68 to the US dollar. I'm not sure about pounds. So you calculate it backwards. You take out the VAT. You figure the retailer's making 40 to 50%. The distributor on a pioneering or smaller brand would be making 25 to 30. And then you're going to have some money set aside for promotion. So very quickly, though, you would be able to, kind of recalculate what your price might be in a different country. Also on the subject of doing your homework, okay? Once again, I've listed here, I think, 40 single line items that takes from first meeting to first order that ultimately a distributor would want to know. Maybe not all at the first meeting, but the fact that you've kind of got a export brand book or playbook already, or fact book already prepared, that you either share with him or get to him pretty quickly, says, wow, you've prepared everything that I'm going to need to know, because ultimately, and I think the UK has gotten high grades on this, distributors, it's a people business. They want to work with people that are responsive, people that they like, and that people that make their job easier. So here's the information that they need. And to the degree that you have this readily available, or you don't have to recreate it every time, makes their life easier and impresses them. Okay, there's a question here. Let me just see.
Yeah, Greg, it's Shirley here. I wondered, on the slide prior to this one, you had like the different prior to that one, we go back. Yep. And you mentioned the percentages, that the margins, etc. Yep. Would you be able to do like a live example? Like you've got the Walters Pure Butter. I mean, it's 21.30 on this screen. A breakdown, just a rough numbers to how that would look. I don't know.
Absolutely. And every country has a different kind of pricing value chain model and mechanism. And I've tried to put some general things. So you have to remember, and I actually have a guide. It's called Finance and Logistics Money Matters Guide that digs into this in great detail. But specifically, you have to decide whether you value chain up, that is from your factory gate up, or if you work it backwards from the shelf price. So since I don't have your factory gate price, Shirley, I'll do it in reverse. So Walker's shortbread cookies at $21.70. Probably the first thing I would do is convert that to my home currency. So USD is divided by 3.68. You'd have to do it to pounds. I believe now in the UAE that most food products are VAT eligible, and that number is 15%. Then out of the UAE, it's a little bit strange. I always say just front margin, back margin, all the retailer keep their hands out. In general, you could, get really specific, but the total number front and back tends to be between 40 and 50% for challenger brands. Now, in the UAE, they have a lower everyday margin, front margin, which they'll tell you is only 20%. And you'll say, oh, that's beautiful. But the back margin terms and conditions in the UAE range from 15 to 20%. That is, you can pay a certain amount just to be on the shelf, but then if you want a brand block and certain things. So I think it's always fair in this case to give a retailer margin of 40 to 50%. Distributor margins, once again, when I'm working on a project, margin is part of the value chain, but ultimately the number that the distributor is looking at is a combination of turnover and margin, right? Because, if the brand is going to do 10 million in sales, well, he might take 15 margin because that's generating 1.5 million in cash flow. But if the brand is only going to generate, let's say 200,000 pounds, okay, in turnover, 200,000 pounds, he might need 40 to 50% because once again, they're not running charities, right? And when he takes the currency risk and importation and inventory and his sales deployment and picking you up at the airport. So, you also not just have to look at margin, you have to say, what does that margin contribution look like? But in general, a distributor margin on products that are small to mid-size should be about 25 to 30%. Now, it could be higher, but if it's higher, then you have to ask the distributor is what percentage of that is going to be invested in brand activation activities or, support. So you have to strip that out because some distributors will charge a higher margin, but they'll also reinvest it. And then, of course, any, shipping costs that you may have, from the UK. Shirley, does that answer your question in 2 to 3 minutes?
Yeah, that does help a lot. Thank you so much. Cheers.
And this kind of model, ex the US, works almost everywhere. Just real quickly, go to the retailers, what's out there, and figure 40 to 50% for the retailer, 25 to 30 for the distributor, an allocation from promotion, and you can, work the math. Also, another thing to your point, in certain countries, I always target a price point that I want to be at. So, if I want to be 20% higher, I need to be at 29 dirhams in the UAE. Then you work backwards and everybody shaves their margins a bit. Okay, contacting new distributors. I can't tell you how many times somebody's bought my database and said, hey, I sent out all these emails and nobody replied. Well, no surprise. Typical distributor gets a couple hundred emails a day, mostly from their own employees and existing suppliers. And breaking through that clutter is extremely difficult. So here are a few best practices. One, short email, link to a beautiful website, no attachments. Don't send them this huge diatribe of multi-paragraphs on, why your brand is the best. Short email and link to a great website. Second, happened last week. The guy was sending his emails Thursday night to the Middle East. It arrived in the distributor's hands after midnight on a Thursday, prior to the Friday start of the weekend in the Middle East. Nobody's going to read those. Those emails are lost in La La Land. When you send an email out to the distributor, it should arrive Monday at 2 o'clock his time, start of the work week. He's got through the morning mess. He hasn't started traveling. And by the time 2 o'clock hits, he still may not reply, but at least on a Monday, you've got the week and it's fresh and it doesn't get lost. The third thing is, and a lot of these guys today internationally, they're not even on email anymore. They get it, but it's overwhelmed. You got to have their WhatsApp number or mobile number. But, I'm not proud. My job is to connect with these guys because I've got a good business idea that I think is a good fit for him. So I send him the email on Monday, but I look at that as the first serve in tennis. It's just the first serve. Sometimes it's an ace and the guy reaches back immediately and you're in business. Most of the time, I don't take it personally. I don't give him a week to react or even 2 or 3 days. I pick up the phone the next day around lunchtime and start calling the old-fashioned way. And you're probably not going to get him, but guess what? You'll get his assistant or you'll get somebody else. I am calling on an important new brand introduction. Who's in charge of important new product assessment at the distributor? Oh, it's so-and-so. No, the MD doesn't handle it anymore, but so-and-so head of marketing. So pick up the phone and call. But ultimately, it's once again like picking a life partner. No one is going to get married over the phone, right? You got to go and visit them. You've got to see their house. You've got to spend time in the market. So it's nice to have a nice short meeting at ISM or via the web. But ultimately, my message is, hey, I've got a great idea. I think it's interesting for your company, for your country, and I'm coming to fill in the blanks in 6 weeks, not next week because he's going to be busy, or 2 weeks, he's going to be at ISM, in 4 to 6 weeks, and give me an hour of your time, and I really love to have you sample the product. That's how I, in general, do it. I'm not going to go through these. Breaking through is tough, but I've got 10 tips here on how to connect and get through to people, including LinkedIn. I'm a big believer in LinkedIn because even if you're emailing the guy through his corporate address, LinkedIn goes to his private address. And particularly if you send him a LinkedIn message in the afternoon, his time, it's just another way to get his attention. And by the way, all these slides are shared. Before I take maybe 2 minutes to go live to my website, are there any questions or anything that I can answer for you?
Greg, can I just ask a quick question about, okay, you've done the deal, you started working with a distributor, or you maybe been working with for a while. The survey kind of pointed out that, distributors are working on average between 20 and 80 brands.
Yep.
So how can I rise up to be that best-in-class supplier? You've obviously seen, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, are there any kind of absolute must-dos in terms of rising to the top of the pile and being a preferred supplier?
Excellent question. And Nicola, sometime if you want, I have a whole 1 hour module on this, getting
I thought you might.
of the distributor time. But in general, the analogy is a distributor is like a parent with 20 children, okay? He loves all of his 20 children, but each of them saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. And although those of us that are parents, we love all of our children, the bottom line is and I've got charts on this and can share, you want to be seen as a preferred supplier. I've got a chart I could somewhere buried in here, getting a distributor to fall in love with your brand. So how do you get the guy to fall in love with your brand? As I said, I've got like a 20-point checklist on it, but one, your brand has got to be important to him. It's growing, okay? That first blush of the first date while you guys decided to do business, your brand is growing for him and growing sales. 2, you're supporting him with marketing. 3, you're responsive. 4, you come to visit him periodically. 5, it's not just a relationship with him. Everybody talks about the distributor MD, but the distributor MD is the gatekeeper. I mean, do you go and how's your brand manager? Do you work the field? Do you have a sales contest? Do you invite the team to your office? So, that's how you break through the clutter, even as a small to mid-sized supplier. Do you have a distributor advisory council? Hey, Mr. Distributor, I want you to be on my distributor. We need your input on new products. Or do you give the guy an award? Whether it's for a certain number of sales, is it for 5 years of service? Give him something, some support. This is the best way to break through. But ultimately, it's about the sales. How much money are you making for the guy? Okay, this is the key breakthrough. And so sometimes, it's like being on part of a team. Everybody on the team is not, an all-star, right? And sometimes, the distributor you have is not the right fit, and the right fit is measured. Are you getting the listings? Are the sales growing based upon your aspiration? And sometimes, even though you've got this big fancy distributor with all these big famous UK or international brand names, well, great, for the PowerPoint, but you might be better off with somebody more small to mid-size who gets up in the morning and thinks about you.
Great, that's great advice as usual. And I think that circles back to what you said near the beginning about the fact that if you're doing half of what you've just explained, you cannot be doing that, particularly if you're a small team, in more than a very limited number of markets. So if you, and I always say, if you think about how much effort and resource you're putting into building your UK business, you can't be doing other markets justice if you're spreading yourself too thinly, which, to your point, as I say, you made earlier.
So I want, this is not a commercial, but we have a couple minutes. I just wanted to share with you both some of the free resources we have available, as well as some of the commercial kind of fee-based services. So this is my website. It's exportsolutions.com. The first thing I want to go is to insights. Okay, so I have published 15 guides here on different aspects of export, and you could also go beyond the guides, different subject matter like distributor management and export handbook and scorecard guides. But for example, here's the distributor search guide. As you see, it's 84 pages, and many of the charts that we've discussed here are all here. And as you see, it's all free. There's another really cool guide called New Distributor Cooperation Model. It's titled From First Meeting to First Order. So you've met a guy at a trade show in the UK Pavilion run by PS8. and, everybody's smiling and shaking hands. What happens next? Converting promising leads to new partnerships is the theme of this one. So anyway, the insights section here, it's free. It's literally got 15 different guides that can, it's written for the general audience, but it helps you, think through some of these issues, from a kind of a textbook standpoint. And then briefly wanted to just share my two databases. So once again, to address the common question of how do I find a good partner? In this case, it could be Singapore, it could be Serbia, it could be a country in South America, it could even be South Africa. We track 96 countries, basically everywhere outside of sub-Saharan Africa. But it allows you to go online, you pick a country. Okay, in this case, we have a free sample for Singapore. And you see we track 163 distributors in Singapore, but then you can go by category. So who handles Asian food and beverage? Okay, beverage, juice, water, coffee, tea, confectionery, snack. Many people here would fit under also gourmet and international food, or even UK food and sweets. So here's 12 distributors in the UK that are currently, in Singapore, currently handling either exclusively UK products or, have it as an important part of their portfolio. And it's written from a commercial manager's standpoint, the distributor's name, a direct link to his website, the key contact, the categories they've involved in, and then a sampling of the brands that they represent. So we have this information for 96 countries, and it's meant to just be a time saver for those people looking to know not just one distributor or a distributor in country, but we track an average of 88 per country. So it's literally the complete subset of big distributors and small distributors. The second thing to be aware of is we have a retailer database. It tracks over 2,900 retailers, and our sample is actually the UK. And so what we say with our retailer database, it tracks virtually all the retailers in a country, not just the 4 or 5 that everyone knows. And the critical point here is because sometimes when you're a challenger brand, tough to get into Tesco, but there's many other small to mid-size accounts that you might be aware of. And the other key point is the direct link to that retailer's web shop that allows you to do the pricing exercise. So any case, I didn't want to take too much time as a commercial. I believe in what you guys do, and I believe the right answer. The last thing I'll leave you with is that with 88 distributors on average per country, there is a distributor for every exporter, right? It's just this doing the work, following the methodology to find the distributor who's the right fit for you, right mix of capability and passion for what you have to offer in alignment with your aspirations and investments. So good luck.
Thanks, Greg. That's absolutely brilliant. That's bang on time as well. That's really impressive. And I think that you've shared a ton of stuff with everybody, and I think everyone will have found it absolutely invaluable. And I think the timing's great. People are going off on their summer holidays. If you're going to Southern Europe, it's probably going to be too hot to go outside anyway. So you can do a lot worse than looking at all these lovely links on Greg's website. We'll circulate certainly some of the key ones. And I say you've got the address there, but it just remains to thank Greg. It's really nice to have you back again. It's been a while since we've done something together, but that's been great. And also just say we've got our next Pro and Premium member quarterly focus group on the 26th of October, which sounds like a long way away, but it will soon be here. And if there's anything you'd like to cover or anybody you'd like us to invite, just drop me an email. And don't forget to join us tomorrow, 10:30, for our regular members meetup. Many thanks to you all for joining, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks very
Thank you
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
you.
Thanks all.
Bye. Thanks,
Bye.
Greg. Bye.